That is the most awkward that camera has been aimed yet.
Why is that?
It just looks cattywampus.
Yeah, it's sideways a little crooked. I think it's been worse.
Only one way to tell. Go check out our videos on YouTube.
That's right. See if it's crooked or not. Speaking of which, hello and welcome to The Moon Underwater. I'm Kelly Daniels.
I am Steve Jones.
And here
always.
We are at the Roadhouse, and this is a special edition of, in honor of the passing of one of my favorite filmmakers. I'm sure you know who we're talking about at this point. We're opportunistic. We're just going to jump on there. But really was David Lynch was one of my absolute kind of, I hate using the word seminal because it's kind of, semen.
Right.
I don't really like to think about it that way. But it is an early, like, me going from a kind of like metalhead, beer drinking rat to artsy guy.
Yeah.
David Lynch was totally like
you still have one foot in the, ratty beer drinking, etc.
For sure.
Camp. Yeah, just to be sure.
And so, we're going to talk about Blue Velvet because we were just thinking about all the different movies he's made. That's his most famous, probably, and why mess around with like a side, and also because we've already talked about Blue Velvet on this wonderful podcast. And by the way, Steve, Heineken, fuck that shit. Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Yeah. And also, don't you fucking look at me.
Don't you fucking look at me. There's a lot of that.
There's a lot of good lines you can use.
Yeah.
And, now it's...
fucking look at me.
Yeah. Now it's dark. We'll have to end with that. And we probably shouldn't waste them all right now.
Right.
But you've had a hell of a day. You drove in from skiing way up
north. The frozen tundra of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
It was -2 to start the morning.
Yeah.
And they were in a ski camp, so like getting instruction on how to race. Mm-hmm. And they'd basically come in about every 2 runs, which I thought was pretty good because the lift ride up takes forever and the ride down is not long.
Yeah.
So they're freezing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it was a little cold. I had to watch this movie today, inside at what amounts to an abandoned restaurant at Devil's Head Resort.
All right. Sounds like The Shining, but it wasn't like that exactly.
Man, now that you mention it.
It was a little creepy.
Well,
like there was a bartender there that
only talked to me.
Yeah, okay.
It's super weird.
Yeah.
Like nobody else saw that he was there.
Yeah, we're mixing movies and genres a little here, but...
it's sort of like a David Lynch film.
Sort of. He did mix genres quite a lot. And that was really smooth,
no
man.
problem.
It just kind of happened.
Yep. That's why I make the big bucks.
Yeah, that's right. So, gosh, I really loved... watching this again. It has been a long time, over a decade, probably over 20 years.
Okay.
I've watched it more than once in my time. The first time I saw it was on VHS. I just graduated high school.
Nice.
And I wasn't an artsy kid yet. And I just kind of watched it in this apartment that I was living in with a bunch of other people. And there's a bunch of people there drinking beer. And I wasn't paying that much attention to it, and it didn't conform to, wait, what is this? Is this like, I didn't get it, because and I just didn't get it. But then a few years later, I started college, and I just kind of self-consciously I just decided in my mind to to be more artsy and to be and I just started liking that kind of stuff. And then I watched it again, and I had a better experience with it. But also one of the bridges is between the way I was then and the way I became as a Lynch fan is there was a song about Blue Velvet by Anthrax.
You sent it and I didn't listen.
It's all right. You had a busy day. It's called Now It's Dark, and Anthrax was one of my favorite thrash bands, or favorite bands at the time, and they were one of the big 4 thrash metal bands.
Oh, yeah.
And the big 4 being what? Megadeth, in order of
Slayer,
Anthrax, Anthrax, and Metallica.
I was going to go Iron Maiden.
No, Iron Maiden was way longer. That was just
Okay.
old school metal. No,
it shows what I know about metal.
You had that was good that you did Slayer though. You kind of caught that.
Yes.
Yeah. But the song "Now It's Dark" is great. It's just got all these lines from the movie, and then the main guy from Anthrax.
Metal guys.
Yeah. Well, the guy Ian Scott, I think his name is.
Yeah.
He became kind of friends with David Lynch and
that checks out.
Was an extra in the movie Lost Highway, Lost Highway, but his part got cut at the very end. Like that happens a lot, I guess.
Yeah.
So anyway,
unless you're Richard Branson in one of the Bond movies, and you agree to let one of your 747s go to the filming, and you flew with it, and it's like, hey, just put me in.
Yeah.
He doesn't get cut.
No, I guess not.
It's him at security with his hands over his head, or that's his son, and he's standing there like big grin on his face.
He's playing himself, all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's just a cameo, like, there he is.
Right.
And I remember seeing it in the theater and going, hey,
right,
that's definitely Richard Branson.
Yeah, there he is.
So I'm also, before I get canceled for saying that he's a smart metal guy or an artsy metal guy, I'm saying that that's so unusual. It's actually not.
Yeah, a lot of them are pretty bright.
Yeah.
Have you, boy, we're taking
Otherwise,
a while
come on this show and defend yourself, cowards.
That's right.
Yes.
I don't know, man. Those metal guys, they're scary.
Yep. Scare the shit out of me.
Yeah, all that Satanism and stuff. They're going to, like, do a pentagram or something and then summon the devil, and then we're
really canceled.
We really are. Or we'll get a good fan, you know.
Yeah, well.
We're big in hell. That's
probably.
Yeah, that's where our fan base is.
Us.
That's where our fan base is.
Well, forced fan base.
So you kind of watched this movie under duress, and you're not a huge David Lynch guy, but you said Mulholland Drive?
Well, okay.
But what about Twin Peaks? Have you seen it?
I didn't. I mean, I knew about it. I knew everybody thought it was really weird when it was on. But did he also do Fallout? I think I saw that.
Fallout?
Yeah.
I don't think so. No.
Are you sure?
I don't know what Fallout is, but...
The show. It's on Amazon Prime.
Nah.
I so want to look this up.
It's possible that I'm wrong, but I'm probably not.
Okay.
I'm a pretty big fan of David Lynch.
It just came out. It would have been in the last year.
Yeah. Well, we'll look at it at the end.
Yeah, we can't cheat.
Well, I mean...
We can, but we're not going to.
We don't need to.
My phone's over there.
I already know. Yeah, that's right. So how was the viewing experience? Just
the
overall,
experience was children coming in from the cold every 10 minutes and
seeing like some naked woman saying, "Put your disease in me."
Your
that was a good one.
Now in me.
Yeah, very sexy.
It was that, but now I did have my headphones in, though. I have a confession that I lost my AirPods this weekend because I didn't zip up a pocket.
Oh, no.
And the
While
Find
skiing?
My was turned off, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I was not.
That happens. Yeah. I once hit a tree. I hadn't snowboarded in a while.
Yeah.
And this is in, like, Iowa. It was Chestnut, or Illinois. And so it's not like some big mountain or anything, but there was like a little clump of trees, like 5 trees or something.
You had to go check them out.
So I had to check them out, but my memory of how good I wasn't matched to my current skill level. I kind of lost control a little. I wasn't going super fast, but I smacked into a tree and it hit my knee. I was like, oh shit, did I break my knee? This is embarrassing. And I felt like something like liquid sort of draining down on my kind of belly or something, and I'm like, oh shit, did I get stabbed? I had a little flask of whiskey and it just smashed it flat, and it was like leaking out into...
Was it like a plastic flask?
No, it was metal, but I mean, if you get a metal flask and you just like slam it on the ground, it'll start leaking. They're just like tin.
Right.
I mean, at least this one wasn't super. So yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, Well, and if you're reluctant to jump into overall impressions of the movie, we can just get into.
Well, let's start with the plot. We love that.
Yeah, we do.
Can I start with where they are?
Please do.
Lumberton.
Yeah.
It's almost as offensive a name.
Lumberton?
As unobtainium.
Unobtainium.
That was from, oh God. The Blue Critters, James Cameron. Help me out.
James Cameron.
Avatar.
Oh, unobtainium.
Unobtainium.
So Lumberton actually looked a lot like Twin Peaks.
Okay.
Twin Peaks is a logging town in the Pacific Northwest somewhere.
With a better name for the town.
Yeah. So you didn't like Lumberton?
I was like, really? This is the first thing jumping out to me.
Yeah.
Is Lumberton?
Huh. I don't know. I guess I'm not quite following you on. Just sounds like the name of a town.
Sounds made up.
Yeah. I don't know. I bet you there's a Lumberton somewhere. I mean, it just seems like people name towns. Stuff like that. So they're in Lumberton, and could you tell what time frame we were in?
I would have gone with early 80s.
Yeah.
Just by the cars.
Yeah, well, but the very first shot is roses and an impossibly blue sky and a white picket fence.
Yep.
And the first car you see is like a 1950s kind of car.
No.
Well, there's a fire engine we see,
Okay.
but also the first passenger car we see is really old like that. And everything looks like the perfect 1950s, kind of idyllic sort of deal. And then the fire engine drives by, and then there's the spotted dog on the fire engine with
and the guy waving.
The guy waves. And everything is great, and there's somebody's watering their lawn, and all the lawns are nice and green.
Yeah.
And then all of the sudden, the guy first of all, the guy that's watering his lawn looks a little seedy. He's wearing a bolo tie, and kind of he just looks a little odd. Doesn't quite fit in with everything, and then he just screams and clutches his neck.
Yeah, and falls over.
He falls down, and he's still holding the hose that he's watering with, and it's shooting up, and a dog runs over and starts biting.
But it's
where
his crotch is.
But wait a minute. Before that happens, everything is really kind of wonderful or whatever in this first scene. First montage or whatever it is, and then the camera focuses on the faucet, and the pressure of the water is sort of squirting out of the side of the faucet from where the hose is attached, which always happens.
Yeah,
but it makes this weird sound effect, this intense pressure that all of a sudden it's just scary. Oh my God, this hose is going to blow up the whole neighborhood, and then you're like, wait a minute, it's just a hose.
Yeah, it was very intense.
But then all of a sudden the guy has a stroke or something.
Yeah.
And the dog is biting the water and totally ignoring that the guy's dying, and he's in the mud. The dog, and then it goes into slow motion. Yeah. And the dog is ferociously biting the water, and it again looks kind of evil. Almost. Yeah. And then the camera just kind of slowly goes under the grass.
Yeah.
And now we're in this dirt, and all these beetles are rummaging through the dirt, and making this horrific sound that's super scary. And there's seemingly hundreds of them, and it's gross and creepy. And that's our first little intro to the movie. Yep. And so you have the perfect idyllic, seemingly 1950s, small town, Lumberton, America, fire engine, everybody smiling, everybody waving. But then just suddenly out of nowhere, this horrific thing happens. A guy just drops down. So that's our intro. And then you see our star, Kyle MacLachlan, playing.
He is great.
He was nobody when David Lynch found him.
He was in a bunch of his stuff, too,
Yeah.
right? So.
And he is just kind of walking around wearing this, like, black suit, young guy, throwing rocks. And it turns out it's his name's Jeffrey. Turns out it's his...
Jeffrey Beaumont.
Jeffrey Beaumont. My granddad is Clark Beaumont.
Nice.
Died a while ago, but, World War II vet.
Thanks for your
pilot.
service.
He was an ace.
Sweet.
Shot down 5... I'll just call them zeros. That's not the word he used for it. But
right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He didn't really get around to forgiving the Japanese by the time he died.
I never forgave the Germans.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all right.
But Beaumont, yeah. So, yeah, Jeffrey Beaumont, it's his dad who had that stroke. And so Jeffrey, we learn, is summoned back to town from college.
Right.
He went away somewhere. And he's a good boy, He
is.
Bright-eyed.
Wholesome.
He's got a, skinny tie. And that's only when I see the skinny tie do I realize we're probably in the 80s.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because all the cars were really old. They look 70s for sure, but the first cars we saw were really 50s.
First cars were 50s. I go early 80s on the other cars.
Yeah, I think, well, you mean the long ones, like the Cadillacs?
Yep.
So they were making cars like that?
The old man tan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just...
Sure.
Yeah, that's my...
I do feel like the town and the time are both out of... They're anywhere, and the time is almost any time. It doesn't feel like it's really set.
It doesn't.
In any particular... It could be anywhere kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
It's a magical place.
I don't remember there being, TVs in many of the scenes.
There was a TV... Oh, yeah. When everything is really idyllic still and nice, they kind of go into Jeffrey's house, and then one of the old ladies there, his mom, his aunt, whatever, are watching black and white TV, and it's like a noir, and there's somebody with a pistol, and then a dark stairway, and there's
very David Lynch.
It is very David Lynch, and
it really is.
That we're
so we're in the hospital, but now I want to know what happened to this guy's neck, because he's got a full
halo
going on. What the hell is that?
I don't think we're in the world of logic.
Got it.
In this film,
we aren't usually with David Lynch.
No, he doesn't work that way. It's and we're not even in the world of story, I don't think. And that's kind of my thesis of this, is that it's got a plot of sorts, and you might even say it's got a couple of plots.
Yeah.
I say that. It's got two separate plots that collide in an interesting way. But actually, just looking at the plots, the stories, they're not that interesting. Everything that's interesting is just the way it makes you feel to watch it and the weirdness of it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a bigger idea beyond just, are they going to figure out who did it? Or are they going to solve the crime? Are they going to fall in love? Those are the two plots. There's some kind of a crime thing going on. And then there's a couple of young people who, have a crush on each other.
Right.
And so there's a love story and a crime story. But everything, to say it's just kind of a crime story with a love story isn't actually talking about what this movie is really about at all, because, we don't even really understand the crime story that well by the end.
No,
I mean, I can put it together, but there's so many holes in that plot. It's just why are these people doing this?
Right.
And the love story, it's who gives a shit, really, if these two get together? They're kind of
So should we start with them?
Sure.
With those two?
Yeah.
So we have Jeffrey Beaumont, and we have his girlfriend-ish.
Well, he remembers her from high school. She remembers him.
Right.
He's away to college.
Her
She's
name is Sandy Williams.
She's Sandy, and he meets her. Oh gosh, we're missing the big inciting incident besides the dad who's has a halo and he's really screwed up in the hospital.
Okay.
Jeffrey's walking back, and he starts throwing rocks again.
Yeah.
And looking for rocks to throw, he finds a human ear,
an ear
that has been severed and kind of like moldy, and it's gross looking, obviously, and there's hair on it. And like the camera goes like into the hole of the ear, like in this, like with this eerie music. And Jeffrey decides he picks up the ear.
He's going to go to the police.
And he takes it to the cop.
Instead of leaving it.
Yeah, he's supposed to leave it.
It's amazing.
But he doesn't. And then he brings it to a detective, Detective Williams, and that's Sandy's dad. And that's how he ends up kind of getting together with her, at least running into her.
And then there's sort of a love interest there.
Oh, yeah.
She's played by Laura Dern, young Laura Dern.
Yep.
And I thought she was pretty good.
I mean, she's good.
Kind of an odd role.
Yeah.
Because she's supposed to be like the high school kid.
Yeah.
So they start to talk about things that they've heard about a woman, and that would be...
Well, she overhears him talking to her dad.
Right.
About the case. So Jeffrey wants to find out more about the case. And he's like, and the detective is like, sorry, you can't tell anybody about this, and it's an ongoing case, and I can't tell you anything. And he goes, he's like, well, I'm just curious. He goes, yeah, I was like you when I was your age too, and that's probably why I became a detective. And he goes, it must be great. He goes, yeah, and it's horrible too. And he says it, and I think to really appreciate this movie, you have to kind of get the over-the-top kind of, I don't know.
Overall feel,
is it
I think.
Irony? It's purposely hamming it up.
Oh, yeah.
In this overly sentimental and overly, like everybody's overacting kind of.
Yes.
And it's not like they're good actors. This is the way this movie happens. It's there's something artificial about it.
Totally.
All the way through.
I think Kyle MacLachlan, isn't that him? Kyle?
Yeah. He's Jeffrey.
For that reason, he is perfect.
Yeah.
I thought he nailed it.
Oh yeah, he was great.
He was really good as like.
He was no Dennis Hopper, but
thought Dennis Hopper was really good as well.
Oh yeah. Well,
we'll get to that.
It gets wilder and wilder as we get into the underworld. So Sandy wants to hang out with him because she overheard it.
Now they're going to be
and so they're asking
detectives.
him, and so she's like, "Oh, you know, I heard this other stuff is going on. That there's this woman, and that there's this and this."
Oh yeah.
And yeah, they're going to be these like cute little junior detectives, high school kids.
That's exactly it.
And so that's the beginning of their kind of like. And then it turns out she has a boyfriend, and he's disappointed. He goes, "Oh, Mike." She goes, "Oh, I have a my boyfriend Mike I have a date with him tomorrow." He's like, "Oh, well, I guess that's not going to happen then." And he's kind of pissy about it.
Yeah.
But he decides. They go and they check out this woman's house, this apartment.
She overheard the apartment that they need to be looking at.
So earlier, when Jeffrey first leaves the house from his mom and aunt, his aunt or his mom goes, "Don't go to Lincoln Street." He goes, "Oh no, I won't."
And he looks up.
And then when they
goes up,
and then when they get to the woman's house, the camera just pans across to the sign. It's Lincoln Street, and the music gets
and
kind of like
it did get intense. It was really good. It was great.
And so we find out. Yeah, I don't know how detailed we need to summarize every bit, but we eventually meet Isabella Rossellini.
Correct.
Playing Dorothy, who's sexy but tired and crazy. Kind of, you get that right off the bat that she's and she's a lounge singer or a jazz singer and that's where we get the title. She sings Blue Velvet.
She sings Blue Velvet. Yeah.
Blue Velvet.
Wow.
Not bad, huh?
That's really
gosh.
good. That was the hook. Kelly's going to sing.
I know. I was hitting
Except
it.
for real.
Hit every... I was trying to ham it up, but then I wasn't quite hamming it up, and so I'm like, no, I can't. If I'm just bad, I'm just bad.
It's hard to ham.
Yeah, you got a Blue Velvet. So she sings that, and it's kind of like sultry and sex. Anyway, Jeffrey decides he needs to sneak into her apartment, see what's going on.
Yep.
And his dad owns a hardware store, so he's got like a bug spray rig.
Yeah, the spray rig.
And also a jumpsuit. And here's where I'm going to get into a little bit of symbolism. Bugs at the very beginning, when you go underground, they are the things that are in the dark. That's the evil so up above in the bright sun, everything's great. Everything looks beautiful, but all you have to do is just look 1 inch below the surface. It's dark, and it's all these bugs. So bugs are kind of symbolic of evil, I guess, or the darkness. And Jeffrey is setting himself up to be the pest control guy.
Right.
The bug killer. But he's a fake bug killer, isn't he?
Yes.
And he goes in and there's nothing in the tank.
But he still could have killed... Oh, really?
You could tell the way he's spraying.
He's spraying it everywhere.
And he's also kind of like the way he picks it up and the way he's like, you could say there's nothing in it.
Right.
So he goes in and meets this woman, and then he sees some guy in a yellow suit.
Yeah.
Just walks in and gives him a dirty look. And so he's like, something's going on there. And he steals her keys.
Yep.
While he's there. So the plot is definitely thickening.
Yep.
And also, along with the plot thickening, you can kind of tell that Sandy and Jeffrey are kind of
starting to get a little more.
And she's telling her friends not to tell
Mike.
Don't tell Mike. It's nothing. It's
no big deal.
And he has a cool car. Jeffrey does. It's like a big convertible.
Oh,
giant
he does.
Convertible.
Yeah. Looked like an Olds to me.
Yeah.
There's another car question later that I will have for you.
Yeah. All right. I have to pause for a second. Somebody just kicked a field goal.
Oh, he made it.
Football is on right now, folks.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
You know what? I
Go
think.
Bills.
You know what would be funny if you could see one of these TV screens and reflected in the window here on the video.
And we get dinged.
Then people, we can be sued for broadcasting the NFL.
No,
like
I don't know.
We're the great NFL pirating podcast.
Come on this podcast and defend yourselves, you cowards.
Yeah. All you NFL people. I know, we need more beers.
I'm going to see when he's available.
Yeah, let's do that.
PBR.
So, Pabst Blue Ribbon.
All right, do you have something with which you can occupy everyone's time?
But don't dally.
I will be dallying all I want.
All right.
I'll be right back.
Steve?
Because the refrigerator took a shit.
Yeah, he told me the same verbiage this time as the other guy. Exactly that. That's the official language.
That's amazing.
All right. So Steve is, I'm going to narrate Steve walking on up to the bar while I think about what my next question is going to be. Or I do love the... oh, look at that. What? PBR now, huh?
Yeah.
So Heineken, that was just for show. Should we talk about Heineken?
We should.
Because he goes on a date with Sandy. Laura Dern, Sandy, and they don't really know what to talk about at first. And he goes, Heineken. He orders them both Heinekens, and they're at the bar where what's her name is singing. Is that right? Or are they just at a bar?
Yeah, I thought so. I thought they were at the bar where Dorothy was singing.
Dorothy was singing. It was called the Slow Lounge.
Yeah.
Maybe. And he's like, Heineken. You like Heineken? She's like, I don't know.
Never had one.
Never had one before. He's like, I love it. And she's like, my dad drinks Bud. He's like, Bud.
King of beers.
The king of beers. And that's the beginning. And then later when he's in Dorothy's apartment, like being really sketchy. I mean, going to
sneaking around while she's
he uses his key to get into her apartment. She's not there, and because she's singing. And he's like looking around, and then he goes into her bathroom, and he takes this big piss in her toilet, and he goes, Heineken, as he's pissing it out.
I was thinking the same thing. It's in my notes. So is he calling Heineken piss?
No, because he was just, that's
Lynch
why he was pissing.
Calling Heineken piss was my question.
It was just that
it seemed kind of fun for me.
I think it was just when you have to take a leak when you've been drinking beer, but you're not really that much of a beer drinker.
Yeah.
He had like that underage drinker kind of,
she was in high school and drinking with him.
I know.
What
at
kind
the bar.
Of film is this,
I know.
sir?
I know. I don't like it.
They said he was perverse.
Like it.
I knew it.
So he misses her cue that Dorothy's coming home because he's in the bathroom and flushing the toilet and stuff.
The toilet's flushing and he can't hear a car horn honk. That's the loudest toilet in history.
It's loud, but it's also enclosed. There's no window, and it's tile. And then she comes in, almost catches him, and he runs into the closet.
As one does.
And she takes her clothes off.
And it turns into the most voyeuristic peeping Tom.
Tomming peep.
Tomming peep.
Yeah.
It goes super voyeuristic very quickly.
Oh, yeah. And he's checking her out. She strips down to her underwear.
Yep.
And she is kind of like sexy, but not super young, and kind of like her makeup is too thick, and she's a little bit flabby. Not much. She's a beautiful woman, but there's just something really kind of tired and used up about her. Yes. And she has this disturbing conversation with somebody he has to call sir, and you get the feeling, we know what the plot is. Pretty soon you figure out that her husband and a child are being held prisoner, kidnappers, so that they can have leverage over her. And then Jeffrey sort of like makes a noise in there. He knocks down a whatever those things are called, coat hanger.
Yeah.
And she hears it, and then she kind of like...
Oh, now we're going to start talking about the weirdest scene in the movie.
Yeah. And it happens pretty early, and I hope that's when all these like little kids are coming by while you're... I
had to stop this one a lot.
Yeah. So she's in underwear, and she kind of sneaks around the side of her, like the closet that has these louvered doors so you can see through.
Otherwise, it wouldn't be much good.
And then I know, he's looking at the wall, at the closed door. And she catches him basically, and she has a kitchen knife, like a chef's knife.
And she starts ordering him around.
And she's like, what are you doing here? And he goes, oh, I know you. Where are you? He's like, oh, I was the bug guy. I just wanted to see you. He goes, what are you doing here? And then she makes him strip.
Yep.
Oh, you like looking at me? Take my clothes off? You take your clothes off. So he has to take all his clothes off. There was a peen shot at one point. Like if you look.
Oh, wow.
It's like when he's like running away, I think, when Frank shows up.
Okay.
There's like a quick little like flopping peen. So if you want to see some of that action,
I'll check it out. Do you have it marked like for time?
You know it. I got it tattooed on my anyway, she's basically kind of like sexualizing this experience quite a lot.
Amazingly so.
And he's freaked out, but he's scared, but he's also, it's a turn on, and all of a sudden they're in this like weird kink kind of situation where
she is saying, don't look at me.
Yeah, she goes, don't look at me. And then all of a sudden somebody comes to the door and he has to hide back in the closet.
I love this.
And then Dennis Hopper shows up, who's Frank.
Yep.
And he's wearing like this leather jacket and he walks in and he is basically rapes her.
Oh,
but
I went with
he fucks her.
Speed humped.
Well, we'll get to that because there's something about that I think is really worth noting. And
okay.
So he harasses her, and you realize that he's got her husband and her kid in under his control, and she's like crying, and he's like, "Don't you fucking look at me!" And
he does the same thing that she.
And
did
he's
to
grabbing
him.
her, and then he starts puts this gas mask up to his face.
Yeah.
And then he goes, Mommy, baby wants to fuck.
You just won the Academy Award.
Oh yeah,
sir.
I'm good. Oh, I know how to play that part.
That was exactly. I know. Yeah, played the part.
And he's like messing with her. Yeah, like, and he's kind of like looking at. Oh, he makes her sit in front of him with her legs open.
Now spread your legs.
Yeah.
Don't look at me.
Yeah, don't you and he slaps her.
Don't you fucking
and
look at me.
Every time he slaps her, she like smiles in ecstasy. So she's kind of, it's a really twisted situation.
And she asked later,
yeah, later we could see that it wasn't a one-off. And finally he keeps inhaling this gas and getting crazier and crazier and like hitting her but also like groping her, and then he jumps on her and then does this furious humping between her legs.
Yeah.
And then it's just done in like 3 seconds. And one thing that's interesting in that, if you watch, which I did, unlike Kyle MacLachlan, there's no peeing involved. His pants are still buckled and zipped.
Yeah.
Like he does not actually, and then you realize he probably never has. And so...
Yeah, probably not.
And so he just like harasses her and gropes her, and then he's probably not really a sexual guy in that way. He's so crazy.
He was making great noises. He was like,
oh! Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, so I think that's, let's see, that for me, her treating Jeffrey the same as she was treated by Frank is the part that like jumped out at me in this. And it was like, you have, she's being, she's dominating and she's being dominated, right? And like it's kind of an awkward scene. I don't know.
Yeah. You're jumping to when she's with Jeffrey later?
No, I think she was ordering him around and then got ordered around.
Yeah. That's right.
And like,
so when Frank first walks in, he's like, "What the fuck? Where's my bourbon?" And he's like, tells her to turn out.
And he gets like a pint of bourbon out of it.
He gets a bunch of bourbon and he's like, "Put out the lights." And then she puts out the lights. She goes, "Now it's dark." He says, "Now it's dark" a lot. And
I never realized
the idea of light and darkness is a kind of a theme in this, and that Jeffrey's world is the world of light, and he's the above ground guy, but everything about Frank is dark, and Jeffrey is just more and more drawn into the dark.
He is.
And it starts off with a little bit of curiosity, but it starts getting more than that after a while. He just wants to go there. He just needs to know. I guess that's what curiosity is, but so finally, eventually Frank leaves, and then Jeffrey kind of leaves, but he ends up coming back.
Yes.
Over and over, even though Sandy's like, "Hey, this is too crazy. Don't do this anymore." And he's like, "No." And I don't think he tells her.
No.
But he goes back and he starts just having a sexual affair with Dorothy.
He does.
And she wants him to hit her.
Yes.
And he's like, no, I don't want to. I want to help you. And she hit me. And she starts messing with him, so he slaps her.
He does.
And she goes, and so he's becoming.
He is
one of them. Is really what's going on, and
so in a couple of times in this, as I was watching it, things occurred to me before they were said, and one of them was when she said, "Your disease is inside me."
Yeah.
But I had thought about it before, like that she had infected him, and like that.
Yeah, I don't think it's that literal.
But for me, I as I'm watching it, before that, what I'm saying is that I'm watching it like there's some sort of a change because of her, and then in the next scene it was like I have your disease inside me.
Oh yeah,
which is where I was like, well, okay, that's not the way I had it in my head, but all right. Thanks.
Yeah.
Anyway,
she's pretty twisted, and her way of making love is unconventional,
to say the least.
So there's a scene also I want to kind of highlight after that is when Jeffrey kind of decides to go different. Yeah, like he's going to go straight, and I think he and Sandy go for a little ride, and they park outside a church, and there's all these like great church windows, stained glass windows, all lit up from inside, and the church music is just blasting like organ music.
Okay.
I don't know how to do church music with my voice, but you guys know what church organs sound like. And then Sandy, Laura Dern, gives him this long speech about this like dream she had about all these robins. And something about the robins are the thing of like sunlight, and it's all dark and stormy and evil or something like that. Oh, Jesus. I should be focusing on the thing. And it's this really sweet little story, that dream she has, and all these hundreds of robins come back. And when they come back, you know that like order, light has been restored and has defeated darkness and all that. And Jeffrey's like, yeah, that's right. I'm going to quit doing this. We're going to let it go. Let's let the cops deal with it now.
Amazing.
But then he's just like, no, I can't. So he starts following them, like literally following the bad guy into the darkness.
He has an amazing contraption to take pictures. Yeah.
That is really weird that he needs a camera like that, but I guess, that makes sense.
That's how it goes.
Nope, didn't make it.
I think Buffalo might
Too bad.
pull this off.
Too bad.
Sorry, everyone. We are only slightly distracted by the football game.
I know. It's so disrespectful for David Lynch. Like, I
was going to say for our fans, but...
Well. Oh, yeah.
If he doesn't like it, he can come on this show and...
David Lynch
I'm not going to call him a coward, so we're good.
Come on now.
I know. All right.
Anyway, the church scene is great, and but he just doesn't go with it. So he follows Frank, and hey, let's bring the football. Right after, there's a connection with football.
Yeah,
right after Jeffrey starts just casing Frank and taking pictures of him and watching and essentially getting closer and closer to the shit that's going on, this weird stuff. And there's a whole conspiracy going on. The guy with the yellow suit that walked into Dorothy's house, he's involved in this. And then they cut to Sandy.
Yeah.
And he comes to pick her up, and she goes, keep driving.
Right.
Because they're watching the football team warm up. And I think it's really funny how Lynch decided to represent the football team, because they have those enormous shoulder pads, but they're wearing these tiny little short shorts with no padded legs. So they have these like little tiny legs with these they just look kind of ridiculous.
I didn't notice, but
I've watched it a bunch of this. I was looking for it this time, but they're definitely trying to make the world of light. Even the football guy, that's the tough guy, right? But they're really just kids, and and later we find out that they aren't really that the whole thing is like that. But at any rate, there is something about football.
There is.
In Blue Velvet. Great football movie. Let's just, I'm going to make that case. Blue Velvet, greatest football movie in history. Discuss.
I say true.
So, Jeffrey goes back to, like a moth to the flame.
Yep.
Goes back to Dorothy.
He has to.
He likes her.
Yeah.
He's got to think. His disease is on her. And,
I actually wrote the note, by the way, before they mentioned, I said, it's like Valens is infecting Jeffrey.
Yeah.
That's in my notes right here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Okay.
She is.
So he goes back with her, and, well,
Frank and company catch him.
I love
leaving.
The cronies.
Oh, yeah. There's this whole, he's got this whole
cronies,
crew.
Really two that were like the...
Yeah. But
really,
there's like, and some of them don't talk much, but they're just...
The ones that do are great. Because it's totally over the top.
It's over the top. They're such weirdos. One guy I remember from Escape from New York, which we've got to do one of these days.
Oh, for sure.
And he was one of the characters in New York, one of the prisoners who had this enormous, like... Oh, you know what? I think it's the actor that was like Billy, the stuttering Billy from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, who ends up killing himself.
Which we also want to talk about.
We do?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sure, why not? Talk about everything. And he's great. He's like just weird and skinny and sketchy, and they're all like that. So... They grab him and they just force him to go on a joyride.
We want to go. You want to go on a? You don't want to go on a what? A ride. A ride. That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, he's like, hey, let's go for a ride. And he goes, no, I don't want to. What? You don't want to go for what? Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to go for what? A ride. Oh, that sounds like a great idea.
And he looks back at his friends. Get the car.
Yeah. And they pile him into what kind of car?
Oh, I didn't pay attention.
Oh,
what is it?
Come on now.
What is it? What is
I wrote
it
it down on purpose.
What?
I mean, baddies always drive Dodge
Charger. That's right. It was a Charger.
It was a Charger.
Yeah.
I had to look to make sure it wasn't a Challenger.
It was a Charger. It was a beater too. I mean, the outside was.
And it was made to look like a beater, and it was a 70s Charger.
Yeah. So they just go out to their buddy's house.
Yeah.
Ben.
Right.
I love Ben.
The place to be.
Yeah. And they go in.
It says that on the neon sign in the window. Yeah.
And it looks like a bar, but they go in. It's just
like
an apartment.
Whorehouse, but
it's an apartment.
Without whores,
but they're like these really large, older women, and then
in lingerie.
And then Ben, I don't think they were in lingerie. I think they were just wearing clothes.
I don't know. They seemed like they were wearing lingerie when they were wearing clothes.
I think they were just like Midwestern kind of like, housewives or something, or grandmas. They're kind of old.
But they were like, also...
It was a crime thing. It was like a crime house.
I kind of thought it was a whorehouse.
I don't think so. I think it was just his pad. But maybe they did stuff. No, they were keeping Don, which is Dorothy's husband and her son. They were keeping them in the back room.
Okay.
And they were just sort of like there. Anyway, whatever they were. But they walk in and it's just like... and then Ben is just this guy who's wearing thick, heavy makeup.
He's pretty gay.
He seems gay, and he's got these like sleepy, stoned, like heroin addict eyes. But every now and then he opens them, and they sparkle like darkly.
He was great.
It was amazing.
He was great.
Amazing, kind of like. And then Frank is going crazy. Get some beer, and Ben is just really mellow. And he's like,
right
hey,
here.
What's that?
The beers are right here.
The beers, yes. He's like, where's the beers? Where's
the fucking beer, man?
He's like, Frank, darling, where are the glasses?
Right.
And at one point, he's like, what should we drink to? He's like, here's to fucking. And he's like, okay, Frank, here's to fucking.
Yeah. That guy was amazing.
And then he does a lip sync of a candy-colored clown they call the Sandman.
Oh, hilarious.
And it's so great.
It's so good.
And everybody is sort of like
Because
taking
it's so
apart.
weird.
Yeah, he's got like a construction lamp with a cord. He's holding that instead of a mic.
Yes.
And candy-colored clown they call the Sandman tiptoes in my room every night. Every night.
I don't want you to stop because this is amazing.
Go to sleep. Everything is all right. And then
Nice.
and then the song, it's kind of a samba kind of a song.
It's great.
I close my eyes. Anyway, everybody's grooving. And then Frank
We're all
starts
grooving right now.
We are. Frank starts getting upset for he has his own demons, so he's talking to himself and yelling and Ben kind of gives Jeffrey a nice punch in the gut. They're roughing him up.
They are roughing him up.
And then they go back to the car, right?
Ben's like, oh, did they hurt you here? And he's touching his face.
Yeah.
And then he just socks him one right in the stomach.
Yeah.
Pretty great.
Yeah, it goes, is it better now or something?
Yeah.
And then they take him, they bring another, one of the women with them, the youngest of them, but she's still not young. And they all go out to just some lumberyard like place in the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
Being very, very threatening to Jeffrey. The henchmen are all giggling. And you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the guys taking Fletch up to the volcano.
You
don't remember?
I don't know.
Robert Stone.
Oh, yeah.
The one about the
Sorry.
guys being, he doesn't want to go up to see the volcano, and
Fletch
he feels
in
like
my
he's
world is Chevy Chase.
Yeah,
so
right.
That's
right.
Like
Fletch, yeah.
I'm like, took Fletch up. That doesn't make sense. I don't remember that.
A few episodes ago.
Yeah, well.
But the guys are taking the innocent boy. So he wanted to kind of
he wanted to join them.
He wanted to see what the dark side was, and now he's
he got
like
to see it
100%. And
Yeah.
they bring him out there, and they beat him up. But they're beating. Frank starts like playing with Dorothy's breast. He starts sucking on the gas again, and he's doing this baby thing with her breast. Like, look at her breast. And it's so weird and
super
disturbing
weird.
and funny almost,
It's
but
funny.
not really.
No, okay. I walked into this watching it like you watched Mad Max at the theater.
Yeah.
And I was
it's
like,
comedy.
oh my God.
Yeah.
There's stuff I'm like, that's funny. No,
It absolutely is funny.
right. And so I'm like, okay, part of me was like, this was done intentionally to see if people would laugh at it, or they'd go, yes, yeah, absolutely, that's art because of, whatever. And I don't know. It felt like it was.
So they beat the shit out of him, but before that, he punches Frank. Oh no, Frank is like sucking on the gas, and his eyes are all crazy. And then he looks at Jeffrey, and his eyes are so wide. It's really pretty over the top kind of like acting, but great. He sells it.
He was really good.
And he goes, "You're just like me." Says that to Jeffrey.
Yeah.
And then Jeffrey punches him because he doesn't like how he's treating. And then Frank goes crazy, and then they beats the hell out of him, and then leaves him there. And he finally gets home, and his face is all plastered. And now he's going to give it all up.
Right. No, I've seen too much.
Yeah. No, it's good. And so he's just goes to this little date with Laura. Laura Dern.
Laura Dern. I know. What's her name?
With Sandy. And it's this little high school party, and it's like, oh, they're just back to where they were. Just, being a good, college boy, dating a high school girl, and
never mind the fact that I spied on these people.
Yeah, and eventually his bruised face is going to heal, and...
yeah. Oh, right, because he has a black eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, as he's leaving the party... all of a sudden, a car comes out of nowhere, and there's a car chase. And he's like, "It's Frank! I can't escape that car!" And blah blah. And they're driving.
And by the way, when it was showing it hitting him, I'm like, that's not That's not a Charger.
Not a Charger.
That's
No,
not
it was
the
a
right car.
What kind of car was it? It was sort of cool looking. It was sleeker.
Can I tell you? I think it was an Impala.
Oh,
It was a Chevy.
All right.
I think. Somebody correct me.
Yeah, I'm sure that's
Come on this podcast.
That's a learnable. Yeah,
and defend yourself,
yeah,
you coward.
Impala.
Yeah.
I'm going to my grave saying it's an Impala.
It's an Impala.
And
Come
if you
on
show
here
me a
and
clip
fight
that
me.
shows that it's not, I'm not going to watch it.
Right. I think it was a Chevy.
So it turns out that it's Mike, the boyfriend, and his goons, his football guys,
in an Impala.
in an Impala, of course, and not disputable.
What else could it be?
At all? And then they drive up to Jeffrey's house. He's like, I got a gun. My dad's got a gun. He thinks it's Frank. And it's like, it's just Mike. And then all of a sudden, you could tell that Jeffrey has changed because a bunch of drunk football players who want to kick your ass is probably kind of scary.
Yeah.
But he wasn't afraid of them.
He didn't care.
He was just like, oh, it's that guy.
Right.
And he just stops and he's like, okay, calm down.
And they do calm down, even though there's 3 of them or 4 of them and 1 of him.
But then all of a sudden, there's this completely naked woman.
Yeah, something changes the whole scene.
Just walks up, and it's Dorothy.
Yep.
Butt naked, full. And I got to say, that was like a nice bush.
She had it going on.
She had a big bush, too.
She
Like,
did.
that was not an 80s bush. That
No.
was a 70s.
Yeah.
She was old school.
Extra.
Yeah.
Yeah. She had the perm
But
done.
she's all beat up and naked. And then I love this part because there's this. It takes a while for the viewer of the movie to register that there's a naked person because it doesn't fit the scene. And remember,
she's standing there.
She's standing there, yeah.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't look like what? Wait. That doesn't.
It's like in the background.
Yeah.
And she sort of slinks
Yeah.
into the frame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And finally, and I love what either Mike, I think it's Mike, says, "What is that? Your mother?"
He does say that.
And then
the line was great.
and then Jeffrey runs up to help her, and then all of a sudden, Mike is like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," because he's a nice boy, really.
right.
Like
Mike ultimately he hasn't seen anything.
No,
Right.
he
So,
hasn't, and
he hasn't wanted to join the dark side a little bit.
Yeah.
Just to go look.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nope, he didn't do that at all. He's just he got wasted so he could have enough courage to, to confront Mr. College Boy, who's by this time, by the way, when you see Jeffrey walking along the streets, like he looks like a totally different person.
Oh,
He just looks like his tie is a little bit undone and his face is just a little bruised, but it's just everything about him.
He can't unsee the shit that he's seen.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so this is what I love. This is the great kind of like, I guess, the power of the movie is the two storylines I told you about. One is kind of a cute, cheap little story about a high school kid.
A romance.
It's a romance.
Yeah.
And does she choose the
With
football
Sandy.
player or the college boy? And how do they get in the fight? And that whole thing collides with
Serious.
the crime story.
Yeah.
Well, the crime story is also kind of like, what is Frank doing? He's like dealing drugs, kind of.
I was going with like the adult sort of love story versus the sort of innocent one.
Well, there's that, but I also think that the story with Frank is a crime story. If you just reduce it just to the plot, it's some guy. It's like a little bit of a crime ring, and we find out that there's a cop that's involved. The guy in the yellow suit is a cop. And so there's a cop on the pay, and they're doing something with drugs.
We don't know what,
and we don't even need to know.
Yeah.
And also, like,
but
he kidnapped this guy and this child, and he's keeping him so that he can keep sexually abusing this woman who will not go to the cops for some reason.
Right.
Doesn't quite make any sense. But what's interesting is the collision of those two stories, and it happens right in that scene, and everything just gets thrown off kilter.
Right.
Like, all
because
of a sudden...
he's, like, wrapped up with Sandy.
Oh,
like,
yeah, and she notices him.
Yeah.
Or with Dorothy, right?
Oh, right.
She's hugging him, and she goes, Jeffrey? And then she's like, you put your disease in me. And she looks at Sandy. He put his disease in me. And she's like, oh my God. She's crying and crying.
So
and he's just like, oh, no, just don't worry about it.
It's fine. And we need to get her some help.
Yeah.
Let's take her to my parents' house.
Yeah, they go to...
That's what Sandy says. Take the naked woman that you clearly have had sexual intercourse with, and let's bring her to my parents' house. This is all going to work out.
Yeah, but in those days they didn't have cell phones, so it did take a while.
Up.
And so here's a little bit I caught on this viewing of this movie. Finally, the ambulance shows up, and the cops and stuff. The first thing they do is they put the gas mask on her. It's the exact same mask that Frank uses.
The ambulance was really old?
That did look kind of old.
Looked more like a hearse.
It did look like a hearse. I mean, I think in the 80s, ambulances were vans.
Absolutely.
Mostly, yeah.
So, I mean, I think that looks like a 50s. Yeah.
Oh, that's weird.
And so that's from the beginning.
Yeah.
And then we get that. I remember looking at it going, that's out of place. Which maybe was the intent. I don't know.
I think so.
If only we could ask.
Oh, yeah. I think so.
If only we could ask.
Oh, we don't need to. He wouldn't answer. I guarantee it.
Well, but somebody, we could still at least ask the question.
I read so David Lynch has a connection with Iowa. Do you know that?
No.
Do you know anything about Fairview, Iowa? Let's give it a ding.
Maharishi.
Yeah. David Lynch was a huge transcendental meditation guy, huge into it.
Did he ever transcend his body?
I don't know if he did that or not, but he
would be pretty bitchin'.
He spent a lot of time in that university.
Yeah.
And he put there's something called the David Lynch Foundation, and he put millions and millions of dollars into bringing transcendental meditation to like at-risk youths and prisoners and things like that. that university in Fairview is Fairfield is one of those places, and
the one in Fairview is totally different.
Fairview, Lagerton. But I read this little blog article about somebody who met him there at, like, he was giving some talk, and he was doing a Q&A, and some like film student gave this like 15-minute long question. You know what I'm talking? With 2 parts, and he was talking about all the techniques of chiaroscuro, which is like shadow and light play in film, and it's this whole thing. And David Lynch's answer after this long thing was like, I like watching characters walk from darkness into light. That's all he said.
That's fantastic.
And so I don't think he would have explained himself that much. I think he would have he just went for it. But so we have still a little bit of kind of plot to deal with, in that Jeffrey is like, okay, he tells they're at Dorothy's house, and Frank is here, and he's already told Detective Williams, what's going on. And basically this, at the very end, they got the big bust, except Jeffrey goes to Dorothy's house.
Yeah.
And what do they find there? What does he find?
Jeffrey goes to Dorothy's house. I don't remember what they find.
All right, so walks into her apartment, and the man in the yellow suit is standing up with a hole in his head.
Yeah, but that was the most unrealistic looking hole in the head.
It didn't look that realistic, but it also seemed kind of so weird it must be true. Like, the guy's almost dead, but still kind of like alive.
It was cartoonish. He was standing on his feet, dead, basically.
He wasn't really dead, though, because
I'm not dead yet.
He's standing there, and he has a police radio in his pocket.
Right.
And then the radio crackles, and his arm shoots out to the side and knocks over a lamp.
Does.
But he's standing there. And then the other guy that's dead is tied to a chair, and his ear is missing.
Right.
And he's got a hole in his head, too. And that's Don. That's Dorothy's husband.
Right.
They've killed him for
whatever reason.
We don't know why.
Yeah.
But
we
then
also see something else.
Jeff, what do we see?
The ear is missing.
Well, that's how we know it's him.
Right. But we didn't know if it was the son or...
Oh, no. It was a grown-up ear. But
you said there was hair on it. I missed that part.
But also, like, a 4-year-old's ear is smaller.
I thought it made... Well, how do you know he was 4?
Because he had a little beanie hat. There's a picture of him.
I know, but everything else in this movie was fucked up. How do you know? Like,
but also, when she went and talked to him, he goes, "Mommy's here." No, Mommy's... Like, it was a...
Okay.
Anyway.
All right.
It was clear that it was a really little kid. And... So Jeffrey uses the radio to call Detective Williams,
right.
But then he forgets that Frank uses uses this radio.
Same radio.
Anyway, at the very end, Frank is coming to get him, and
the well-dressed man.
He's the well-dressed man. That's his costume.
Yep.
That's also this a great part of the Anthrax song. I am one fucking well-dressed man.
Nice.
It's such a great song. So essentially, Frank is looking for him. I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to get you, and blah, blah, blah. And
he's going to get his love letter.
It's a lot. The ending is a lot like Terminal Man. In that... The innocent guy has to kill the bad guy at the end himself. Yeah. Like, Jeffrey doesn't want to be the cop anymore, but now he's in it too deep. He grabs the gun from the guy in the yellow suit,
who's brain dead.
Yeah,
standing there.
And then Frank shoots that guy, and he just sits down.
He does. He shoots him like in the chest.
It doesn't really show his body where he hits him, but he just aims.
Well, he just aims kind of.
And then the guy just sits down.
He's got a cool silencer, too. So.
Yeah. But also I love how, like, unviolent it is. The guy just kind of, like, sits down like anybody would.
Rolls over.
And so he's shooting the gun around. And then finally he sees where Jeffrey must be, and he walks up, which is the exact same cabinet or closet where he was watching Dorothy get undressed and all that kind of stuff, and watch her be abused by Frank. And then Frank kind of pulls open the door and he shoots and
right
and Jeffrey shoots him right in the forehead.
And his brains go everywhere.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It is.
And then finally the cops show up, and ultimately everything is solved. The bad guy's killed. And
then we got to go to Sandy's house.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know that...
There's a great scene at the end that's super weird.
Go ahead.
With Robbins straight out of fucking Mary Poppins.
Yes. So
it was amazing.
I think we jump ahead in time. Like some time has passed.
Yep.
It's daytime. And all of a sudden the light in the vision is exactly the same as it was at the very beginning. And
I noticed this.
It all is so bright and so perfect it looks completely fake. And then this Robin shows up that looks like the worst robot Robin
it's amazing.
Ever. It is so...
It's definitely on purpose.
Absolutely. It has that... What's that term? Uncanny Valley. Oh. Where... Do you know what that means?
No.
Uncanny Valley is when it's so close to being real, but isn't, that it gives you the creeps. Okay. It's like humanoid robots, often they say, are in that. They're not quite it. Like, if they're super different, you're like, oh, that's a different thing.
Okay.
But if it's... Anyway, the Robin is really creepy looking, kind of, and weird, and maybe comical. And it has a bug in its mouth.
It does. Because it's a beetle.
Yep. So, light has prevailed. And everything's great. All the problems are solved.
Back to being solved. They're together.
And Jeffrey's with her now.
Yep.
All is well.
She wakes him up. Jeffrey,
and
time for lunch.
And the father is healed now.
Yes.
Mr. Beaumont is he's doing fine now.
Everything's good.
Everything's great.
It all works out at the end.
And then they show the fire truck goes by again. but they do it in slow motion.
They do.
And the waving guy, just to me at least, looks ominous.
A little pervy.
Or something.
Yeah.
It just looks like I just putting it in slow motion, but also you can't even believe it. Like the end is so wrong and so fake because we've been through the darkness and we know the difference between, the surface and underneath and the darkness isn't going to go away just because you got rid of one franc is kind of, that's the way to talk about it. But you don't even need to talk about it. It's just the way it makes you feel. Just a little bit, at least for me, a little bit unnerved at the very end.
Yeah.
And then it just ends. And then you go back to Blue Velvet.
It's amazing.
And
we did miss the part where the woman that went with them was dancing to Candy Colored Clown.
Yep.
That was amazing.
When they took Jeffrey out to
they
beat
picked
him up.
her up, the old woman.
Yeah.
She was dancing and
as soon as they started playing the song and they're beating the shit.
She's like,
so they're playing the song to beat the shit out of him.
Yeah.
And she just climbs up onto the roof and starts dancing.
like she's a stripper.
Yeah, totally like bad stripper
so
though.
Amazing.
And it is. It's a wonderful scene.
Yeah.
So
I got questions.
Please.
Number one, is it a dystopia?
No, I wouldn't call it a dystopia, but I think it's about the dystopia around us, or at all times, or the inner dystopia, I suppose. And no matter how perfect the community, I think they're saying is there's darkness within, and it's hidden. There's at the heart of every mystery is darkness. It's and the idea of Heart of Darkness. It's a Joseph Conrad short story that or novella that was kind of the inspiration for
I was supposed
Apocalypse
to have read
Now.
it for several classes now.
Several?
Yeah.
It's not that long. It's actually really good. Well, what's great is at the very end, they finally find Kurtz, the guy that he's supposed to find.
Now I don't have to read it.
No, you don't. I absolve you of that.
Thank God.
They're looking for this guy that went down and kind of went native in Africa during this kind of like colonial project that they have. And he has this like whole army of people working for him. And he just kind of goes crazy. And he's being questioned at the end. I don't know. I haven't read it in a while. But the answer is what is what is it? What is this whole? What is the point of it all? And it's
right.
And he says the darkness. No, the horror. That's right. He's like the horror. I think that's the last of it. In this movie, it's the darkness, but it's the same thing. It's that dread. It's evil, you might say. So I don't know if I wouldn't put it right in dystopia, but I feel like it's adjacent for sure. It's definitely not a utopia.
No. And so okay, follow up, unrelated question. Characters that I thought back on, I was like, any character surprised me like when I thought about them. And I'm going to go with Dorothy. So did you at any point, can you sympathize with Dorothy?
I can sympathize with her. I mean, she's being treated pretty poorly, I'd say.
Right. But I didn't like actively, it was just like there. Like thinking about it, I was like, yeah, okay, I guess that's true. She was getting treated really shitty, but maybe it was.
So you weren't feeling.
I wasn't feeling it, but I didn't know. I didn't know if that was that I was stopping it every 5 minutes to deal with a kid that's skiing in -2 Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that was one of the thoughts I had. I'm like, I didn't feel much for her. She seemed to.
It's a highly stylized movie that's about ideas, I think, more than I don't know, more than emotions and all that. It was kind of like sarcastic in a lot of ways, and kind of. So anyway, I don't feel like you're missing it by not having a huge emotional investment.
Yeah.
I feel like the whole thing is more creepy than
I would agree.
Tragic or anything like that.
Last question. When's the last time you saw this?
Before this?
Yeah.
I don't remember. It must have been probably in the 90s or something.
Does it live up to your memory?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a richer read in a lot of ways, or watch. For one thing, because I've seen more David Lynch since then.
Yeah.
And, for example, it is a lot like Twin Peaks, or at least the setting is a lot like Twin Peaks. Also, I was just watching a I want to shout out to HBO Max. They have a bunch of his films in their catalog or whatever. And because I'm cheap, have the with ads version.
Yeah.
None of his pieces, they obviously put them right on the front of their interface, and they don't have any ads on them.
That's awesome.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they could easily make money on this, but they didn't. They decided to just honor
let's
a great
show it.
Yeah, and honor a great filmmaker and make themselves look good. But I thought it was a classy thing for them to do.
That's pretty good.
But I was just watching a documentary that's on Max called The Art Life, I believe it's called, and it's about David Lynch's early years. He wanted to be a painter, but also before that, when he was a little kid, he was in Idaho. He grew up in early years, at least in Boise, Idaho, and he would always play, and he had really great parents who loved him, and siblings and friends or whatever, I don't remember. But he would, one day, he was playing, and it was kind of the time, it was like starting to get dark. Pretty soon his dad was going to call him in. It was around that time. And then all of a sudden, this woman just appeared across the street, completely naked, and walked across the street toward him, and her mouth was bloody, and she was confused and troubled, and his brother started crying, and he remembered like he wanted to help her. He knew she was in trouble, but he was just a little kid, and he goes, and that's where the memory stops, which obviously sounds
a lot
very familiar. And then he was telling these stories, and tons of them appear directly in this movie.
Creepy.
So yeah, just little moments of his life where he just sees something happen, and then it finds its way into the movie.
Wow. Well, I've got nothing left that I wanted to discuss. I probably need to go watch it again, but
yeah, it's worth a second watch. And yeah, thanks for pushing it in there when it wasn't necessarily convenient. But
we'll get it done.
Yeah, we got it done. And thanks for listening to all of you. And yeah,
I give it 2 thumbs up.
That's it. Oh yeah,
I enjoy it. Yeah,
it's great. You can't. I don't think this is a.
I didn't take it all that seriously, and that.
I also don't think it's a movie that if you don't like it, it's probably you want to keep it to yourself, because it's full on in the canon of great films. I think, or at least not until after he's been dead for a while, I suppose. But
yeah.
Anyway, I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah.
And I think your instinct to not take it too seriously, especially on a first watch, was a good one. I feel like artsy stuff, people think they need to take it seriously, so they don't like it. But a lot of it is having fun.
It was fun, though.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We'll leave it there.
Yep. Bye.